Dear ladies and gentlemen, I would like to warmly welcome you all to our second workshop for tool providers within the Diligence project. My name is Ursula Kopp. I'm part of the team of the Institute for Managing Sustainability at the Vienna University of Economics and Business, and I'm your facilitator for today. Professor Andrei Martinuzzi is the founder and director of our research institute, and Angelo Spurk, my colleague, leads the Diligence project. We have planned for 1 hour to have 2 expert speakers, who I will introduce in a minute. But first, let us briefly tell you about the Diligence projects. May I hand over to my colleague Angelo, who's the project leader.
Thank you, Thank you so much. Yeah, good to see you all. Thank you so much for taking the time for our tool provider workshop today. Let me briefly walk you through the Diligence project. Diligence is a EU-funded project funded within Horizon Europe, so it's a European project. The Diligence project provides a one-stop shop, and we are all perfectly aware that there are several projects calling their results one-stop shop. What makes Diligence unique is, for example, that we are providing a one-stop shop specifically for mineral supply chains with more than 200 regulation standards and tools listed. Before going live, we screened more than 100 digital tools based on a tool screening catalog. We shared the screening results with you as a tool provider prior to the publication, and this publication is helping companies to find the right tool specifically for their needs. In addition to the tools, the one-stop shop provides further knowledge on regulations and standards, as well as deep dive articles on very specific topics, such as companies' reporting practices, for example. Additionally, there will be a comprehensive self-check tool, a self-assessment tool for tool providers, for companies, that will walk users through due diligence and shows them where they are currently standing and what to do next in order to improve their due diligence practices. The Diligence project also focuses on assurance and verification mechanisms and, for example, identified lighthouse cases on how to involve affected people. As already mentioned, we analyze digital tools, and we are currently further testing some of these tools in so-called tool testing areas, and we will publish these tool testing reports soon also on the Diligence website. And last but not least, we put the spotlight on companies' due diligence practices and needs. In the first round, the gap analysis based on sustainability reports has been done, and now these results are available in the one-stop shop. And in the second round, we are conducting interviews with high-level experts from companies to verify these results. So you see, a broad diversity of activities is conducted within the Diligence project. Today, we are organizing an online workshop, an online meeting specifically for tool providers. And this is only one out of numerous activities we are organizing for tool providers. We will develop a roadmap highlighting common principles for the development of tools. And I think this is a really great thing. We will organize later this year, early next year, physical tool provider labs where we support tool providers hands-on, free of charge. If you want to stay updated, feel free to register in the one-stop shop. To keep posted, diligence.eu, your one-stop shop for mineral supply chains. To access the key information, you have to register, but it will always be free of charge. And with that, back to you, Ushi.
Thank you very much, Angelo. And amongst other things, we offer online events every now and then on specific topic, just like today. And as always, our events will be recorded. You're very welcome to post your questions at any time during the event into the chat, and you will receive the slides afterwards. Today, many companies use digital tools to assess risks across the supply chains, but these are often expressed as indicators or scores, not fully reflecting the business relevance. To engage decision makers, particularly at the board level, it is important to translate these risks into financial terms. And to look at this topic, we invited 2 experts who have worked on the monetization of risks in different ways until now. And those are Ana Paula Barbosa Povoa She's professor in operations and logistics at the university.
With a group of ASU frat.
Sorry, okay, it's okay. She's professor in operations and logistics at the University of Lisbon, and her main research domains address sustainability, resilience, uncertainty, and risk in the design and planning of supply chains. And we have with us today Bengt Steen, who is Professor Emeritus for Environmental Systems Analysis, Technology Management and Economics. And of particular interest to him has been the monetary valuation of environmental impacts. It's a pleasure to have you both here, and we're looking forward to short speeches by both of you. And after the presentations, there will be time for your Q&A. Let me start with Anna, who will talk about a methodology that they have developed into the design and planning of sustainability supply chains using monetization approaches, as well as on how to quantify risks. Anna, the floor is yours.
First of all, thank you very much for the invitation to be here. It is a pleasure to share some of the work that we have been doing here at the Center of Management Studies at the University of Lisbon. It's also a pleasure to be part of this team of speakers. So Bengt Steen, it's a pleasure to be here with you, and thank you again for everyone that is here to spend some time with us for discussing this interesting subject. So as Ursula mentioned, I'm coming from the School of Engineering that is called Technic from the University of Lisbon, and I'm part of the Department of Engineering and Management and the Center of Management Studies here at Técnico, where, just a small introduction, we have these three main campuses in Lisbon, and you are most welcome if you want to visit us. So today I'm going to talk about sustainable supply chains and really how to measure sustainability. For sure, what I'm going to say next, you all know that supply chains have been evolving from a traditional setup, like where we were seeing a more direct type of system where we have a combination of processes that start with the customer requests and include, as I say here in the slides, a set of networking entities such as suppliers, production, warehousing, customers, and of course distribution that links all these activities. But recently we have heading to these more traditional supply chains, these reverse logistic activities, where we start working more into this closed loop. So in this circular system where we try to make some value from the end of life products through different processes. However, this is not enough, and what we really aim is really to integrate these product and processes oriented measures that most of you know, with also the resources ability, the alternative materials and technologies, and nowadays the use of these renewable sources and products, and also having in mind the human resources conditions. So we want to tackle the different of the main pillars of the sustainability, that is people, planet, and profit. And if we, as people, as well as organizations or part of organizations, will manage it, then we can really look into building these sustainable supply chains, okay, where the focus is not just economic, but also social and environmental concerns are taken care. Having said that, to achieve this and to advance sustainability, we need to have the inclusion of sustainable aspects into the supply chain strategy. But unfortunately, not everything has been achieved, and the environmental pillar has been now, fortunately, better treated, but the social is still on the way to do it. how can we contribute it, or how we have been contributing in the group, is really on the development of tools that look into this supply chain complexity, that has a set of interconnected decisions, multi-objective problems, different stakeholders. Data collection is also often a problem. We have lack of sustainability indicators, or even if we have them, then it's difficult to use them. So we try to put everything together in building a decision supporting tool or a set of decision supporting tools that really incorporate these aspects. And so one of them is this tool that we have in the group that is really based in operation research, where we have the analysis on the economical component with the environmental, and we couple also the social analysis. Okay, this explores this multi-objective aspect of the problem. We model the presence of uncertainty and also the risk. And we have been applying this supply chain to try to design or to support the design and planning of sustainable supply chains in different case studies that we have been studying with the companies. All right, so what is underneath this tool? Indeed, we model all the main activities of the supply chain, from the supply to the collection and sorting, where we have a set of inputs that go from general data to economic, environmental, and social data. So on the economic, we target an economic analysis with a set of indicators that I'm going to share in a minute. On the environment, we use a life cycle approach, and also we explore the monetization. And on the social component, we explore the statistical analysis, a set of economic indicators, and also some risk factors that we are embedded into our tool. This tool allows us, as results, to have a set of solutions that then the organizations can look at and can decide which one is the most potential one for their goal, of course, considering the sustainability aspects. And each one of these solutions is characterized by a set of data of results. Again, where we have the supply chain decisions, for instance, which supplier should we select, where we have the economic component, for instance, what is our net present value, or what are our total costs in the supply chain. On the environmental aspects, we can identify the environmental hotspots, and on the social component, we also can look into this social impact distribution, as well as identifying the social hotspots that really need to be treated. What is underneath this? I'm not going to bother you too much with this, but just for you to have an idea, we have, of course, operation research methods, in this case, the multi-objective mixed integer linear programming, where we treat uncertainty with a stochastic approach, and we have a Epson constraint method to deal with the different objectives. And so the tool considers on the economic component the maximization of the net present value, among other indicators, where we have the net earnings and the fixed capital investment. On the environmental goal, we use, as I said, life cycle methodology, where we look into the midpoint categories. We do not go to the final single score, but we tend to model all the midpoint categories that are really important for the different types of supply chains that we have been treated. And also on this is then transformed into the model in a set of equations, just to have an idea. So we can quantify the environmental impact of production and manufacturing, of the entity installation, and also on transportation, and of course, considering all the categories associated with these activities in the supply chain. Adding to this, we also have incorporated the monetization aspect, where we have been studying these three main methodologies, the stepwise, the EPS, and the eco costs. And this is also done into our studies. On the social aspect, this is an ongoing work where we try, for instance, to promote job creation in less developed regions, to stimulate regional development, and to support access to critical products, like, for instance, the pharmaceutical products. And this is also, again, modeling into our tool by a set of indicators where we are able to, for instance, quantify the workers that we have in different activity in the supply chain, being this production, transportation, warehousing, whatever. And still on the social objective, more recently, we tried to do a social risk assessment where we look not only in the first tier, but also in the multi-tier of the supply chain. So we have the so-called direct assessment or a global assessment, and we explore this in two ways. On one side, we have some indicators that measure the social equity access, for instance, availability and affordability of certain products. And on the other side, we identify some social risk assessment on the activities of the supply chain through the social risk functions that I share with you in the slide. As results of this work, we have been validating and testing it with some cases. Some of them are here. So electronics company, a pulp and paper company where we focus more on the environmental component, pharmaceutical. More recently, we have projects in the green hydrogen supply chain. As you know, Portugal is investing a lot in this green hydrogen since we have a lot of sun, wind, and water, fortunately. And as main conclusions from this, what can I say? With this tool, we are able to analyze different trade-off sustainable supply chains configurations and planning, which is good because we are able to, analyze different settings. Also, one thing important is that we can test how the environmental strategies impact in the supply chain. And for instance, here I share with you a case where we were testing one question of one of our companies that said, okay, we want to target certified raw material suppliers, how this will impact the whole activity of the supply chain. And if you can see here, when we just use, or when the company just use certified suppliers, it has less profit, but also it has higher environmental impact because of all the transportation activities and not only of the supply chain. So we need to look into the whole system. Also, we are able to identify this social equitable solution and social risks. And here in the map, you can see in one solution, the one in orange, you maximize the net present value, while if you try to prioritize the maximum equity and access for this product that is a pharmaceutical supply chain, you have to have other entities in the supply chain, as you see here. Concluding from this, we can say that using different life cycle impact assessment methods, monetization approaches, and also social approaches, we need to be careful because they provide us, they are a very good tool, but we might find contrasting impacts on the supply chain decisions. So this should be used with knowledge and care, okay? So to finalize, I want to thank my group, okay, especially my colleagues and to Tanya, and also here is my contact. This is Lisbon, a nice city, normally with good weather. That's not today the case, but you are most welcome if you want to visit me. And that's it for now. Ursula and Angelo, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Anna. I was lucky enough to spend a semester in Lisbon while I studied, which was great. Thanks a lot for that. Bengt Steen, You have led the development of an ISO standard for monetary valuation, and we're looking forward to hearing about that and your experiences.
Okay, thank you for inviting me, and thank you for this opportunity. Let me give you some background first of my history. And it goes back to the end of the 1980s. At that time, Volvo Cars contacted IVL, the Swedish Environmental Research Institute, where I was working then, and requested a tool to guide in product development. They had a problem with the discussion whether they should have a composite material or a steel sheet in a front piece of a car, a new car. And there was a lot of discussion, and they realized that if you have to it costs money to have discussions among designers. So they required a kind of tool to make calculations. As I express it, a compass, fast and approximately right. The idea was that if it wasn't fast enough, it would people wouldn't care. I mean, it's if you want to influence something, you have to be there and not come with a good report a month later, which was the case in when life cycle assessment as a tool was as a method was developed at that time. It was a month or half a year and lots of money to do these analysis. So we had this requirement from the beginning, and we formed a small group with designers and environmental experts to develop a first version. And I was fairly working fairly okay. So we had upscaled the development work. So in 92, a national project was launched with the 5 largest companies in Sweden, and the CEOs gave us their blessing. And we named this tool we call it the EPS system, which was Environmental Priority System strategy. That means that the question was really you had some options. Should I use A and B? This type of and then we developed that for a couple of years, and in '96 we published the first version where the damage cost was used as an indicator. And that was you need to do a lot of research and find data to actually calculate damage cost. But at '96 we were mature enough in that respect. And then there has been updates 2000, 2015, and 2020, and now 2025 version is in the pipeline. And also, when we did this development, we found that there were other people thinking in the same type of thoughts, and we needed to talk to them, and we realized that we couldn't explain what we were actually doing because there are so many ways of calculating costs, as you know, and values. So I actually made a proposal to the Swedish standardization organization that we should try to make a proposal to ISO to put it up on. And we had a real good work there with some of the best experts in LCA and economics. So we wrote this standard and created a way of making things transparent. But that means that transparency in this case means you can understand what the system boundaries and so on, but you still have a problem in that for each data there are at least 20 metadata that you need to what time perspective, what's etc etc etc. So it's but now we have at least language. Then we came up with a system for the product developers and designers here that starts. You can see to the left there is we determine monetary values of impacts on environmental goods. That is crops, wood, meat, fish, and things like that. See things that we ascribe value to. And this term environmental goods was something we invented in this or agreed about in this ISO standard because we needed a term for those things that we value in the environment. And when you have these values, you can then aggregate them up to have monetary values for emissions and resource use, depending on, for instance, how much do carbon dioxide, 1 kilogram of carbon dioxide impact on species, crops, wood, etc. So these are impact models that sort of aggregate this up to this level. And then you can aggregate it further up to materials and processes. So we get monetary values for environmental impacts on these levels. And this is what designers and product developers need and think in terms of. They don't think in terms of nitrogen oxides and things like that. They think in terms of what materials will I use and how will I recycle it, how will I, etc. Things like that. And then so the designer do these they go through the manufacturing processes of their products and how much of polyethylene will I have, for instance, and so on, and what will I do with it in the end of life scenario, and what other materials do I need. Then it comes to use phase. Do I need new material, etc. And what do I do with the used material? And you have the waste management of the product at the end. And I think is important even for when you're looking at investment or whatever. It's sort of you aggregate the monetary value of the environmental impacts on to the level which is used by the decision makers. So these things are dealt with the environmental experts and economists and etc. But it should be traceable, but not you can't leave it to the designers or developers. Then the EPS method was I described it in a book on where according to the ISO 14008 standard. And where you're supposed to tell which impacts are you valuing. In our case, in human health and natural resources, or do you value increase or decrease? That's very obvious. And what impact indicators do you have? In our case, it's very much capabilities. That is the fertility of the soil, not the production of crops in itself, but that is the potential of producing. Indicators units are like years of lost life expectancy, disability, adjusted life years, kilograms, etc. And it's specified for each impact. And well, I shouldn't go through all these, but we use the monetary variation as willingness to pay by an OECD person. And why is that? Because the decision makers, the people that design for environment and design for sustainability, they are typically OECD, industrial countries' persons. They are not the poorest one. So this is the most important target group for our case. Then you can, of course, change to other groups' interests, if you like. And there's also a question of dealing with uncertainty. And that means that all figures are two figures. They are the best estimates and the uncertainty figure for the uncertainty. It's a global perspective, and the temporal coverage is as long as impact prevails. And the impacted population is global intergenerational, which means it's not, we don't discount future impacts, or we discount it at 0%, if you like, etc. So this is well, what you need to describe a monetary value. And I should give you an example on a monetary value of carbon dioxide. This is from 2020. And you look on different pathways, actually. The what environmental good, what is impacted. It's different. It's the climate in this case, sometimes food availability estimates, and then we have clean water, crop, meat, fish, wood, etc. So there's a lot of impact pathways. This is heat stress pathway on years of life, lost life expectancy. So person years of lost life expectancy due to heat stress. We have calculated that there is a model behind this that gives you it's 2.65 times 10 to the minus 8. Oh, sorry. And that is almost, I think it was 2 seconds. So for each kilogram of you of CO2 you let out, you kill a person 2 seconds, or you shorten a person's life 2 seconds. And then if there is a value of the 1 year of lost life expectancy, which is about 100,000, little more than $100,000. And then if you multiply this value with the impact factor, you get the impact value. I can't see it here because all the figures get, and so then you sum it up, and let me see if I can, yeah, you sum it up, and down here you have a sum which is 3.17 or $0.317 per kilogram of CO2. And when you do this, you realize which some figures are big and some are very small and tiny. And that means that you get an incitament to sort of, if you want to improve the precision, you go on the big ones first. And you can live with the less good impact models on the one that doesn't have so much impact on the final value. Well, if you want to read more, I've given you some literature here. This is the standard, and ISO standard, and this is a book I wrote. If you have time enough to read that one, and if you want to have only the figures, you can go to the Life Cycle Center homepage on Chalmers, and look at the publications and just print EPS, and you will find all of the reports that is made. So thank you very much for your attention, and I hope I didn't confuse you too much. It's always difficult to condense 50 years of research into 12 minutes or what was it? So thank you.
Thank you very much, Bengt. Thank you very much. That's really difficult to condense it. But there is plenty of room for questions. If because we're not that many people, it would even be okay if you want to raise your hand and put a question directly. But maybe in the meantime, I could ask you one question, Bengt. How is this EPS used in practice? Can
Yeah,
you give us maybe one or two examples?
yes, I can tell you that one of the first decisions they took at Volvo when they saw this was that they have to care about CO2. At the 89 or beginning of the 90s, CO2 was just an issue in science and research. It was not in because they said there's no regulation on CO2, and so it's important to be, I think, at an early stage. If you are scientists, you're supposed to not to find a good balance between being a leader and a follower, and
Mhm.
so 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 and I do not know exactly how it's used I see it's referenced to, and I see it's used, but I don't actually know when they discuss about this to make their decisions. Should we do it this or that way?
Mhm.
I don't know how they think. I mean, and you never get that information.
Mhm.
Well, you can use type of different ways of trying to see what impact do you have. It's but the sort of number of references and so on is not always doesn't tell you what I really want to know is how do people actually uh, uh, discuss this when they are behind doors. I mean, um, uh,
Mhm. Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Please feel free to post any questions. And we already received a couple of questions during the registration to this workshop. I'm going to ask those now. This might be a question to Anna, maybe. What about quantifying social risks? For example, things like forced labor, or how can you deal with job creation, things like that?
Okay,
What is this?
thank you very much, Ursula. Well, that's a challenge, yeah. One thing that we have been looking at is typically in research, people tend to quantify the social component as creation of jobs. Um, and in our experience is that creating jobs is not the same thing if you create a job in Lisbon, for instance, or if you create a job in a less developed area of Portugal, for instance. And this was something that we have been looking at. And it's interesting enough to see that when you face companies with these alternatives, they are willing to considering it, of course, within certain boundaries on the economic component, but if they can help not losing too much in profitability, they do it. So I think on the social component, we need to look into what is the best indicator to really contribute positively on the social aspects. Yeah, like for instance in the pharmaceutical area, as Bengt was also mentioned there. You know, if you use the daily indicator, or you can identify the populations that are really in need, this can be used then to, you know, design the supply chain so has the medicines arrive quicker to this type of population. So there is not an answer to that. You need really to adapt on the type of supply chain and also to the goals that you want to target. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I just saw a question in the chat here. Where can I find the report mentioned at the beginning on the review of tools? And is it possible for other organizations to submit their own for consideration and inclusion on your list? Is that a question to Angelo, actually? Is that
Yes, I believe so. I will share the link with you in the chat. The tool screening results are already available in the Diligence one-stop shop. Tool testing is currently conducted by all our project partners. There we will cluster a bunch of tools to tool testing areas. Currently, we are testing tools, for example, on traceability or self-check tools. We also plan to test, for example, AI tools, and then we will collect this information and publish the tool screening results and the tool testing results in the one-stop shop. If you have further tools that you recommend, or if you have considerations that you would like to give to us, feel free to reach out to us at any time. I will post you my email address in the chat.
Thank you, Angelo. And another question we already received before the event was, how can you compare risks across sectors or across different business types? Do you have any experience with that, Anna or Bengt?
I guess if you have in my where I work, I mean, with this tool, it's not doesn't necessarily you can compare it across sectors. I think it's because it's if you have the emissions or the impacts, it's not dependent on the sector. But then, of course, there are other types of risks that is sector specifics.
Yeah,
Everything you, Anna? Yeah.
I think, risks, you can look into it in different aspects. Yeah. If you look into economic risks, there is some tools or some indicators that you can add to the decision tools to have an idea how much you are risking in financing certain projects. Okay, this is something that, for instance, we use in our models. Okay, things like CVAR and other indicators. On the social component, this is something that, as I shared, we are now exploring using this social hotspots database that indeed is calculating or is identifying the risk based on certain conditions of the countries, like child labor, conditions of the workers, and so on. So again, I agree with Ben that some of these risks are not sector driven, like these ones, child labor, while others can be. Yeah, for instance, now in the pharmaceutical area, where, for instance, we see that most of our active principles come from countries where the social aspect of the workers is not the best one. This then goes through the supply chain, and we tend to forget it because it's far away from where we consume. But it's very important that all these are considered. So this is something that we are exploring, but it's not, I would say, a problem solved.
Thank you. Maybe a very updated question towards the end. AI. Have you any experiences with AI right now? Does it help the whole process? Could it support the monetization of risks, or is it not that important? Is it more the human attitude that's more important? Okay.
It's very helpful. I think I've been doing my update now using AI assisted search engines.
Okay.
That is very helpful. You can't rely, you can't use reference them but you can check your outcomes, and you can certainly get a second opinion and try to understand if the AI have any different opinion than you. But it's very efficient of finding literature data. So. Yes, I mean, if you when doing these, you account with perhaps thousands of factors which you use in this, and how can you? I mean, there's only a couple of thousand hours per year that you can spend with this.
Okay. Makes
So
you faster.
it's crucial to be fast.
Yeah. And
Yeah, I know.
also, yeah, I would have that AI, has different levels. Yeah, you can use AI as LLMs to help us, as Bengt just said. We just be careful. We need to know what we are asking, and we need to know how to really access their results, because they always say what we want to listen to. But AI on managing data is a powerful tool. Yeah, you can really access data. The problem is, and when dealing with the companies, is that often data is there, but is not really available in the good sense. You need to really make a huge amount of work to deal with the data and to filter everything and to put the data into the models. So as they can, for instance, forecast the risks that might happen, or forecast demands, or forecast supplies. So, but indeed, these models help us a lot in building tools that really can treat all the data that previously was really very difficult to deal with. So we are in a good path. We just need to be careful and to understand very well how to use these tools that are very easy to use nowadays. Everything
Yeah.
is available in Python, whatever you want in any, and everything is almost programmed. But yeah, I would say that this might help a lot in managing data towards a sustainability behavior. Yeah, definitely.
Thank you very much. I understand it's very helpful if you know what you're doing and if we are careful in how to use it. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much again for joining us and taking your time, Anna and Bengt. We will share the slides soon, and you can find contact information to get in touch with the speakers if you want. More webinars from our side will follow this year. For example, webinar number 7 on the 22nd of April, which tries to shed light or give a clearer understanding of the evolving landscape of human rights and environmental due diligence issues, particularly in the growing complexity created by the increasing number of regulations, standard, and digital tools. Thank you very much for your time. We look forward to seeing you again somewhere. Have a good afternoon. Goodbye.
Thank you very much. Goodbye to everyone. Bye
Bye
bye.
bye.